In this tutorial video, we're gonna do a more organic type of asset. In this case, we're doing something like a cloth or leather base which has some soft surface and soft feel kind of material. So in this case, we are using the 3C sofa for the tutorial. Here I have an example of the finished product of the sofa. In the entire tutorial, I'll talk about the three process of modeling such type of object and knowing how to prepare them for the game optimization, because we cannot use the smooth function on the object to get a smooth surface. Then after that, with the polygon count will be actually quite expensive to be used in certain type of games that you are trying to create. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and start the tutorial now. Let's start modeling the base of the sofa first. As usual, I'm going to use box, a cube, to start creating my shape. So I'm trying to get the dimension for the sofa base first, so roughly around this. And I have this a main character which is for my scaling. So this character will be the scale where I will try to model the sofa so the character can actually sit on the sofa. So that will be the goal for creating such asset. So now I will do the edge loop and connect to get the line, okay, to extrude my handle for the sofa. So I can actually use, as usual, I use most of the tools can actually use have been used before. So once you're really familiar with all these tools, right, it's pretty much modeling process pretty much the same. There's actually no secret to trying to get more efficient modeling. It's just about all practicing more and more. So once you practice more, then you actually can improve better. Okay, so in this case, we're doing the base, right? So what I do now is actually need another face here, so I can sometimes I'll use connect, sometimes I'll just use the insert edge loop, which is quite fun to use and quite accurate in using it, so the sofa shape will be correct. After that, I will extrude this part here to make the handle for the sofa. So go ahead, I'll now extrude. As usual, you should maintain the habit of practice on modeling. In this case, our line extruding, I always be sure I pull the shape up. Okay, so as long as you do not press anything else, if you press the shape up, you actually can get the kind of like the correct monumentation of the faces that you actually extruded just now. So you won't have any overlapping faces. How do I know? You can actually check when you move around and the shape looks okay. Alright, so now we actually have something on our blockout stage ready. So let's make the bottom handle. So since this part here might need a bit more, okay, let's pull this one down a bit and we're going to adjust it. So you need to be comfortable using different viewport to support your modeling, because you cannot just rely on this perspective view. And the next thing I want to create is the leg. Okay, the leg I'm using the cylinder. So cylinder wise, this one is actually quite, we would say, is in the bottom, so it doesn't reveal much, right? So probably I will not need to have a bit more high res kind of shape. So when I go and change under these subdivision, maybe 8 or 12 is pretty much still okay for getting a low poly feel. Okay, let's try the lowest possible, which I'm using now is actually around 8. So let's pull this shape out. So this will be the handle below, the 6 supporter, the leg for the sofa. So before I go and duplicate, I'll make sure I actually deleted the face from the top and bottom as usual, because those two faces are either one is not being shown in the viewport, because it's actually one will be slot into the polygon, another one is actually on the ground. So literally I don't need to have such a high poly stand to put it there. Okay, so just make use of what I can find. Right, so Now I've done this one, I'll just duplicate to the other side to get the block out stage here. So in this stage I'm doing exactly what I've been teaching you guys, which is the blocking stage. Okay, so we're blocking out the main base for the sofa. Okay, so now if you check, if you're unhappy about the, let's say, the scale of the handle, right, so you actually can just scale it down a bit more. So if once you all selected together, you actually can scale all according to the its own translator, its transformation lah. And now we're gonna do the sofa. One of the things about when you want to make something organic, right? So you actually can think about how do you try to get shapes from here. So in this case, I'm gonna show you this tool called Smooth. So Smooth is actually the tool that will make something high poly in terms of trying to achieve the roundness. In this case, this is actually quite terrible because we actually are not getting this kind of the best result from the Smooth. So I will actually, what I will do, right, is before I approach to use the Smooth function, in this case the Smooth function, before I use it, right, I will mostly use the preview button to check on the different smoothness of the object. Example, if you press 2, right, you get the subdivision 2. So now look at the number, the number pad number on the top. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So 1 is the basic polygonal view of the object. When you press 2, right, it becomes a subdivision. What I mean by subdivision is that you can see the original lines of the original shape, but the mesh itself, it seems to be smoothened down to a more smoother kind of space, but it also becomes smaller than the previous. This actually happens because the edges of the polygon does not hold when you try to smooth it. So when you press 3, literally you will turn down the box for you, the original box, and you just leave the high poly shape for you. So in this case, we actually can use the 1, 2, 3 to toggle back and forth for our convenience of modeling. So if I want to, let's say, make the shape of this object stay, if I will use the toggle number 2 to check the original polygon and also the smooth result before going to final. So what I can do is, if I use the edge tool, you see that if I will increase a line, right, suddenly the edges, the shape will hold, right? Notice that? So this is how actually we do smoothing from the object, but we also add lines, right, to hold the form. That's the key word, holding the form as much as possible, because when we hold the form, then the shape will actually becomes whole. So in this case, when I turbo smooth it later on, and you will have the shape that I needed. So in this case, you will be mindful that this is all just preview only. So now we actually do something quite okay. So you see here, this is actually a bit round. So using the number 2 function, I actually can tweak and get a nice sofa feel for my base. So when I press 1 back, it actually becomes the normal sofa. And if I press 3, I can check, is this the kind of sofa feel I want to have for the smooth surface. In this case, probably I want to tweak it a bit, even though I now managed to hold the form. Let's go ahead and tweak the shape a bit more. If you look at this, right, so I've created a lot of the edges that I can still tweak around. Try to make sure you have a more consistent line flow, edge flow when you dealing with all these objects. So double click. You can double click the entire edges, right, to move it, adjust it as you like. At the end, you should get something quite okay for holding the form. In this case, this one is okay. Maybe this one might be larger a bit. This one will pull up larger a bit. So now I want to make a bit rounder shape, because if I were to continue from this one, and the sofa doesn't feel like a sofa because it's still too squarish. So what I will do is actually if I use the number 2, right, and I will go use the face, right, I will be selecting the original faces of the sofa. So in this case, I'll press 1, you'll probably see what I'm doing. For example, I'm selecting this, and then over here I want to show you what happens if I hold the polygon up, okay, and you'll notice what actually happens. So looking at the original shape and also the deformer shape, if I pull this up, and now the shapes looks more rounded, right? So that is the purpose of using this function to push the shape up. So when I push the shape up, I can actually get a little bit rounded face that I want. And over here, I think I'm missing one more H2 below to help me form the shape. I will now add one more line here. So now I have this line here. So literally, I will just go and select these faces. I want to push it forward so it becomes a bit more rounded, facing outwards, facing front. So you have something like that, a very smoother kind of sofa feel. So this is actually how you deal with a bit organic shape. So let's do that. What else can we try? I feel the middle part also, this part here, I actually can add a bit more. So I'll go ahead and adjust another edge loop. Okay, so you see I'm just trying to block out as much as possible because I'm preparing the model for smooth process, and then if you do that right, then you can actually need to tweak the shape properly, so before it goes to smooth. Once it goes to smooth, there's no turning back already. So in this case, you can still use the toggle preview using 1, 2, 3 to change between the different feel for it. And when you change the original form, when you notice actually the sofa is actually now more organic. So this is how we do a bit organic type of surface. Even here it looks pretty much okay, right? So if you just to tweak this one a bit more, sometimes it actually helps to push a little bit more. Okay, let's check out number 1. Okay, I'll turn to 1 as the preview. So when I push this one out, what happens here is actually, you look at 3 straight away, it's actually a round. So it does help you to create the kind of the feel of the sofa. This feel sofa is supposed to be round, then slowly curving. That is the idea of it. So guys, now I go ahead and select whatever I can for the sofa. In this case, this one is actually deselected. I'm supposed to deselect some areas that's not supposed to select, so I need to reselect again. So I'm selecting this and I'm pushing it up one last time. So again, look at the entire sofa when it's smooth, and I get this kind of result. Alright, so now literally this is something as a start ready. So I can actually get a more smoothing small edges to get a low poly feel of this entire object first. Once I'm happy with this, I'll go to the next process where I will smooth out the entire sofa to adjust it later. Okay,